here right now. Some progress on China trade amid another warning sign for Beijing's slowing economy. A new report shows Chinese factory activity, Mike Block pointed this out last hour, has reached its lowest point in nearly 3 years. This as the Wall Street Journal reports that the U.S. is pressing China on details over recently made trade proposals. Joining us now, the coming collapse of China author Gordon Chang. Will we make any headway? Because, again, we are working with a deadline on these 90-day trade negotiations are due to wrap up March 1st. How do you read what we're hearing from President Trump?
Well, clearly, President Trump's tweet on Saturday when he said he was making good progress, it looks like he wants a deal. Clearly, the Chinese want a deal. They need a deal. Their economy is growing maybe 2% at most. A Renmin University professor a couple of weeks ago created a stir by saying it was growing no more than 1.67%. And he said it may even be contracting. And when you look at this manufacturing PMI, which was released a few hours ago, it's really clear that the Chinese economy is stumbling. So if it's not contracting now, it's going to be contracting in a quarter or two.
Gordon, we talk in the green room about this stuff all the time. I'm interested what in China the folks are really aware of, because state-controlled media reported that Trump called the president of China, whether that's true or not. But there seems like there's sort of propaganda, for lack of a better term, being filtered through there. What's their take on this trade spat with China from a Chinese perspective?
They're not hearing as much as you'd think, because state media has been prohibited from talking about this in a full way. And that's been true now for a couple months, because they really are concerned, Mitch, about the way things are going. So clearly people there don't know as much. However, when people can jump over the Great Firewall, which is, blocks off the Chinese internet, they can find out what's going on. And so there's real concern at the top of the Communist Party right now, because Xi Jinping is being blamed for this, because they're saying, like, who lost America?
Well, Gordon, so what's the big risk here for China, then? You're talking about contraction. Is there a risk of civil unrest? Can Xi lose control here? From us sitting here, it seems he's all-powerful, most powerful leader since Deng, arguably Mao.
Right.
What's the big risk for China here? Is this going to send them to the table here to make a deal on trade?
Well, it certainly will send them to the table to make a deal. Now, whether one will actually occur is another story. But the point is, the risk for China right now is just losing everything. You have Xi Jinping, who has real problems. We're seeing hints of this, and they did not go forward with their fourth plenum. An important Communist Party meeting did not occur this year, despite all expectations. You have a number of very sensitive anniversaries, including the 30th anniversary at Tiananmen Square and the centennial of the May 4th movement, which is even more important for the Chinese. You got a bad economy. You've now got Xi Jinping making some very belligerent noises, and you had those two Chinese officers, military officers, actually threatened to attack U.S. Navy ships this month, one of them saying that they should kill 10,000 sailors and sink 2 aircraft carriers. That's a sign of something really bad happening inside of Beijing right now.
Gordon, I think that you look at what China has promised up until this point and what the administration hopes China will promise. That's, of course, altering its practices that are unfair to foreign companies, forced technology transfers, all the things we've been hearing about. But in the past, China has promised all of these things, and none of them have come to fruition. So what, in your mind, could China do that an actual deal would actually look promising for the United States? Or is there nothing China can do because we don't know if we can take them at their word?
Yeah, we certainly can't take them at their word. I mean, they've made promises so many times in the past. What we want and what we really need are some structural things. First of all, stop stealing our intellectual property to the tune of maybe $300 billion a year, and stop their other predatory trade practices. Xi Jinping is invested in this Made in China 2025 initiative to build technology dominance. In order to do that, he needs to steal more U.S. tech. And matter of fact, they have been stealing more U.S. tech in this last year. So what we want is something that they can't give. Now, they can make all sorts of promises, but, I don't think this administration is going to accept those promises like previous administrations did.
Like negotiations after negotiations after negotiations. The only problem is the narrative, particularly out of the White House, is China has so much more to lose than we do, but you have a market that's clearly concerned in the last several months about our trade with the world about China. We weaken China, well, that weakens the entire globe, including the United States. And a market's telling you we might be headed toward a recession next year. So that doesn't really ring true, not to investors.
Yeah, of course. The markets are very, very short term. You know, what's in the long-term national security interest in the United States is not something that the markets look at. They look at much shorter perspectives. And that's understandable. But the point is, I think the president needs to make some important decisions to protect the American economy, such as IP theft. The markets are not going to like it, but nonetheless, when you go through those small towns in Georgia that are completely boarded up, it's a real sign that the United States has to do something for people in this country who have been disadvantaged by China trade. Markets don't take that into account, but nonetheless, we do.
It's why he got elected.
It's why he got elected.
It's why he got elected, because he reached out to people like the people in my hometown, where all the business is gone and all that business went to China or went overseas.
And if Trump doesn't do something about it, the next president will.
Or won't, unfortunately. They'll say they will and then won't. I want to get your reaction really quickly to this. North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un expected to make his annual policy address on New Year's Day. Kim reportedly sent President Trump a letter amid the stalled nuclear talks. Gordon, your reaction to these developments was, again, there's report after report that the weapons sites are still operating.
Right. I mean, North Korea has continued to upgrade both its missiles and its nuke facilities. They're continuing to produce fissile material. You know, Kim Jong-un is stalling. He didn't take advantage of that one-time shot that President Trump talked about at the Ottawa G7 in June. And so I think that Trump has sort of gotten the point where he's probably going to start to lose patience with what the North Koreans are doing, because they certainly are humiliating the United States and they're making a mockery of our policies. So the president, I think, is going to pivot this year. The pattern was set last year.
Like definitely not another summit.
Well, there could very well be a summit, but I think Trump is going to lower the hammer on Kim. Remember last year, President Trump was really easy on China's Xi Jinping all throughout the year until, you know, Trump lost patience. When Trump lost patience, he then brought down the hammer on the tariffs. You know, this is, I think, the same pattern for Kim Jong-un.
And we're still waiting for those steel and aluminum tariffs to disappear, and that's on our allies. So. Gordon, good to see you. Gordon,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you so much. We'll see you much in the new year. I'm sure of that. Coming up, a last-minute rescue for